Podcast Without Fear, a podcast all about Netflix's first foray into the superhero world. That's right, Daredevil. I am your host, Zachary here, and with me, as always, is Jesse Jackson. No, not that one.
Hello, listeners. Want to give a public shout out to my man, Zachary. He has been incredibly patient with me as I work through some scheduling issues. Not only has he been patient with me, but he's been patient in not being able to see another 2 episodes.
I almost asked another podcaster to fill in while I was waiting because I wanted to watch the...
You know what? I would not have blamed you whatsoever. I just would have made you had a second podcast to talk about these 2 episodes because they are so good.
So
or maybe not.
Yeah, of course, we start right off with the first stick. We finally get to meet him. And he makes quite the first appearance in this show.
Absolutely. The wonderful Scott Glenn.
Yes.
I have been a fan of his since Urban Cowboy. The Right Stuff. He is just a great actor, and it's so cool to see him in this role.
Yes, and we get to see him debut some samurai skills. And even we get some Japanese from Scott Glenn.
Yes, we do. I did want to mention that Douglas Petrie is the guy who wrote this episode. You know, I had talked about early in one of our early episodes that I thought this was an all-star behind the, crew behind the scene. Douglas Petrie is from the Joss Whedon stable of writers. He has done, he's worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He has done, he also did, I'm pulling him up as we talk, he did American Horror Story. He's done Charlie's Angels. Okay, maybe not that. Pushing Daisies, True Calling. So he's been really has written a lot of great stuff. And so very nice to see him, pushing this show.
Yes, and from there, we go right to apparently the papers have already named Matt the Devil of Hell's Kitchen.
Which is a pretty cool name. Don't you think, Zach?
No, yes, of course.
Okay, good. And I love Foggy's rant about the mask guy. It's just so perfect.
I'm going to punch him in the face.
Yes. And, they kind of like, hey, Matt, you've got to do the tiebreaker. You got to tell us. And Matt takes the high road.
Oh, there's a shocker.
Yes, indeed.
This is so obligatory, and it's almost a requirement in every superhero show for have the same. So what do you think about him?
Yeah, exactly.
So Foggy notices something's up with Karen, but Matt says leave it alone.
But is Foggy going to leave it alone? What do you think?
No, he is not.
No, he's not.
From there, we see Leland and Nobu.
Yes.
And we also see Leland thinks just because, and this is why it's such a good choice, him as an actor for it. He thinks just because he's the numbers man, like, even though he knows things, he's got to be careful who he's talking to. Because if Nobu is representing who I think he's representing, Leland needs to watch himself.
Oh, absolutely. He needs to be very careful.
He's like, I know what you're bringing here. And I like how he's asking for his support in case, like, things fall through. And Nobu's just like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, no, you can't. If you can't support yourself, you have no place to be in this cabal, I guess. He's like, no, like each one of the cabal could stand up on their own if they really had to. But this guy, I mean, when you're just the numbers man, you are not the head of anything.
Yeah, and it's sometimes I think he knows that, and other times I think he thinks himself more important than he is. Right? Do you get that feeling sometimes?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
I agree. It's just like, oh, wait a minute. So, yes.
Now, of course, we get Matt confronting him. And of course, he's like, I know nothing. And he starts getting some information about it, but Stick distracts Matt. Oh, although the thing about this is, if that had been a knife, Matt would be dead.
Yes, good point.
So from there we go to flashback. Young Matt trying to deal with his powers, and the Stick comes in to help, and he knows right away what's up with him. Now I think from what we see later, now I'm not sure of his original incarnation because, like I said, I started reading Daredevil a little later than most comics, so I don't have much of my own information on Stick. But was Stick all like he was always the man that trained Matt, right? Even in the beginning comics.
So Frank Miller introduced him. So this is a fairly recent, when we talk about, the 1980s, so that isn't that recent, but no, they didn't cover that a lot, but Miller added that wrinkle that someone, because, the question always was, okay, fine, you can feel, you have enhanced hearing and smell, and you have your radar sense, but how does that help you fight? How does that help you? And so, this is the kind of added to the mythos of, his version of how he found himself, and became a very popular character from the start, and just as cool on this. He's so, he is the typical hardened, but with a little soft center that you doesn't show to anyone, right?
Now, one thing about the scene with them on the park bench when he's telling them about what he's got to do, what he can do, that he's lucky that he had some years to say. I don't know. I think personally, I think they went a little too far in what Stick can sense because it's like they made him sound on par with Matt. Like the stuff he's able to sense. I understand, of course, he's been trained, and of course, when you're blind, your other senses are heightened. But I think they pushed it with him a little bit here.
So I think the point, and I'm trying to pull up Wikipedia, but so please don't send us ranting emails if I'm wrong. But the idea was that it wasn't just the radioactive goo that gave Matt his powers. A lot of things that Stick kind of put the thing, and I just checked, this was November 1981 when Miller came up with it, is that almost any person without sight could find this way and enhance their abilities in that way. Matt just had the radioactive that kind of made it quicker.
Okay, so it's like his Stick is as good as Matt, but it took him this many years to do it. Matt got it instantly because of the
right.
goo.
And so the idea is,
okay, I can go with that.
Yeah, and so it's kind of the talk about that if, and now I got to pull out these old comics, right? But he kind of made fun of him that it wasn't just the it wasn't just the accident that defeated this. There was other things that did this. He also trained Elektra in the genre of the world. Okay.
Right. So, well, okay. So I can go with now. Now another thing I think I should mention because that's probably how Stick found out about him because he's got this kid can do what you can do now and he's 9. And he calls him. I think he knows because obviously a guy like that would go background. He knows that Matt has powers and stuff. And it's, of course, a guy like Stick who's seen the world knows about people with powers and abilities. And he mentions we do have the scene where he tests Matt's abilities and he sees that Matt can do what he does naturally.
Yes, absolutely.
Now I like he's saying he's in town. There's trouble going down. Oh, and I like how when Matt calls it his city and Stick is like your city, huh?
Yeah, there is a wonderful relationship between them. And Stick is not warm and cuddly at all, right? This beer stinks. Why are you living in this crap? But at the same time calling him soft. It's just he's pretty great.
Well, I think he's saying Matt should be living in more Spartan conditions.
I think so too.
Of course, we get a little scene with Yurik and Karen where they're discussing more aspects of the case.
Yeah, and you know, I made a note about that. Right, trying to um, undo a bowl of spaghetti, right? And I thought,
Right.
unraveling a bowl of spaghetti, which I think is a great image that kind of explains what they're doing. I like Karen and Ben together. I think that's some nice interaction. Very cool to have those characters, forging that relationship.
And this is where we find out Blake is at this point is still alive, the cop that got shot.
Yeah, we are, and that's a problem. And so
Obviously.
Fisk is, we got to take care of this.
Now I do like how both Yurik and Foggy both say, like, Karen's like, that guy showed up to save me, and they're like, are you sure?
And that's, right now Matt has not, put on the yellow or the red suit and said,
I bet we won't see the yellow
and
suit.
say, dun da 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 da, here I am in a world of adventures. Guess what, Hell's Kitchen? You have your own superhero. And he won't do that. So, yeah, I think it makes sense that both Foggy and Ben would go, are you sure? Are you sure this guy's there to help you? Let's see what happens.
Well, we see here he says that there's no heroes and no villains, it's just people with different agendas, and that's the central core of this story. Because they almost portray Wilson not as a hero, but not exactly a villain either. Well, he's very much a Ra's al Ghul villain, ends justify the means and all that, going to any lengths to meet his goals.
Yeah, the villain is always the hero in his own story. And in this case, he truly is trying in his own warped way to help the city. And so this does give you a little bit of, we've talked about this before, Zach. I love shows where my hero isn't always good and my villain isn't always bad. And
well, it's something I've thought of for years. It's like, how many men in history that we like put to the highest pedestal, if we knew everything about them lives, would we throw under the bus?
You're totally right. You're totally right.
Now we get a little view into what Matt. I like little. This is one of the things I like about the show. We get little hints of the expansion of exactly the good and bad of his powers. That he can't wear cotton.
Yes.
Or sleep in cotton because it feels like sandpaper to him. I hope we get a lot. I like stuff like that about him, the exploration. Because I once saw someone review. Well, they were talking about the Daredevil movie, and they were asking like, what exactly, like, what makes him different? What makes him this? What makes him that? Like, is he just a, like, how does his powers define him? And that's why I like little stuff like this.
I totally agree. It's a nice thing. It talks about that. I've always liked when they remind us that he is human and he's blind and how that affects things, right?
Yes, exactly. And what we see here, and I think what's really, we were talking about this before about Matt's father, and we know that he actually did, like, he was trying. Well, it doesn't exactly say, but I think we can infer that he was telling his father not to lose, and he blames himself for his dad's death subsequently.
And I thought that in a very, kind of twist, Stick actually in his own way was very supportive, right? Saying, that not necessarily kid, in his gruff way, that you can't blame yourself on what's happened.
Exactly. They are like saying like that was what happened, that he made his choice. Maybe he did it for you, maybe he did it for himself, but it doesn't matter because whatever the reason, he's still dead.
Yeah, that's tough love right there. He's dead, Jim, or in this case, he's dead, Matt. Move on.
And so Stick tells him why he's there, that there's a weapon being brought to Hell's Kitchen and he needs Matt's help. Now, I still think this is even more evidence what Stick says. I think this is more evidence that Nobu is not just Yakuza. I think he's Hand.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I mean, I don't know if we're gonna get Red
Yeah,
Ninjas,
but
but
no.
because there's one sad thing about comic books. There are some costumes that will just never ever, like the biggest badass in comic books. I think most people agree is Wolverine,
Right.
and his costume will never translate to live
Hmm.
action.
No, it won't.
I remember. I mean, anyone who's ever seen a cosplay, who's ever seen anyone dressed on for anything, knows that costume does. I mean, maybe with some modifications, but if you straight up brought the weird ear thing, I mean, in the comics it looks great, but in live
Yes.
action, I bet it would look ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree.
Now we get after Matt agrees to help after he makes Stick agree no killing, but then we get this great scene where I love with Karen and Miss I don't have her name written down, but Mrs. something, and I like you with the handsome lawyer. Oh, you mean Matt? No, no, Senor Foggy.
Yes. I love that too. And Foggy, she's kind of like, no, no, no. That was wonderful. And, when she talks about, right, that when a man is in love or starting to fall in love, he never looks more handsome. And I've seen the way he looks at you. So, and Karen's kind of, what? Oh, come on, come on. And I love that it was all in Spanish. And, every once in a while, you had the English, curse word or something in there. Great
Oh,
conversation.
I love when the old Spanish woman was swearing.
Yes,
That was great.
awesome.
Called them fat. Although, I mean, so apparently the thugs were watching the place.
Yeah, that's what I get the feeling. And so.
But she's visited her before. How they? It's. I think it looked kind of weird that now she's investigating.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
But
fair
whatever,
nitpick. I think that's a fair nitpick.
Well, it's not a huge one, but one thing I really hope they don't do, and they don't really do it. It's like I've always hated in shows like, and the CW lives off of this, is when a character finds out another one has feelings for them, and they like, I never thought of him that way before, but now I do. It's like, no, that's not how that works.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
I mean, you can. There has to be something, and that we have implied, obviously, that she does have some kind of connection to Foggy.
Yes.
So I'm curious to see. I mean, I think it'd be an interesting risk if she dated maybe both of them, but doesn't go badly.
Yeah.
Because that happens in real life,
Yeah.
you know? Not everything has to be as, how could you? Not everything is a soap opera. But then we get to see Foggy save the day, which was awesome.
Yeah, and it was so funny after his the company softball team, and she's like, we only have 3 people, and to have him carrying that is just awesome. It is so awesome.
And I like the scene. It's like he just saves her, and she goes, "What are you doing here? What do you mean? What are you doing?" And like this great little argument between them. Like you have? I just saved you. You have no standing here.
Yeah, exactly. Wait a minute, And it is kind of this. Oh, it doesn't matter, whether it worked out or not. You weren't supposed to do that.
Right, and then from there we get to the scene at the docks. Now I know it's not supposed to be funny, but when Matt, but first we get the introduction of the Billy Club.
Yes, we do.
But I know it's not supposed to be funny, but when he takes out that one guard standing by the water, it just looked funny to me. It almost looked comical. I know it probably wasn't intended to be at all, but when he hits the guy and there's no sound,
yeah,
it almost looked like slapstick.
Yeah, it was really cool. And I agree with you. A little bit of humor, not total, but, enough to make you smile.
Yes. Now, here's what we get. Matt's taking out the guards and Stick's getting ready to do something. And this is when we find out that this dark guy is actually a kid. Now,
yeah, that was tough.
Now, do we think? I mean, my first thought was mutant. But the thing is, we still don't know one way or the other what are the rules of the because like I've always said, it's what limits Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There's certain things they can't say. I don't know if the same rules apply to this show because it's not exactly TV. I mean, it's a show, but it's on Netflix. I don't know if different rules apply.
Yeah,
which we don't know either way yet.
I don't know either. And, you know, and Matt's trying to not get people killed. You know, it's okay to beat him up and perhaps, you know, put him in the hospital, but he is not wanting any death. And Sticks raising his hand, right? Like, you know, oh, I swear, Boy Scout honor. Yeah, no, not really.
And then Matt stops the initial kill, and then they get away. Then we do a quick flashback again to the training, and I mean, I don't know how much of this is stunt work, but if it's not, this kid's pretty good.
Yeah, it was really good, and I do love the Sticks, him working on that, the back and forth, and the kind of, you know, as they're training physically, they're also training, you know, the mantras, you know, the mind rules the body. You know, our
I honestly can't tell if it's a stuntman for the kid or not.
I can't either.
Which is good camera work,
absolutely.
Really. And so, like, obviously, which would happen, he starts to see Stick as a father figure, which, I mean, Stick doesn't let it show, but it freaks him out.
Yes.
And because he never wanted to be close. He believes you shouldn't be close to anyone because that would, you know, hurt your mission.
Yeah, and, you know, they had a great line. You know, I was looking for a soldier, you were looking for a father, and we, you know, and Matt says, and we both were disappointed, you know, and that's, you know, that's the story. You know, that, you know, Matt is at that point, you know, he's a young man, he's lost something, you know, he's not only lost his father, he's lost his sight. And so there's a lot of things going on, you know, and, you know, he was bonding with Stick, and Stick's like, no. Or maybe he was starting to feel things as well and knew that was bad.
It's also true. And they're talking about, now Stick says here, they did something interesting here. It's very realistic. He's like, I'm not going to let you kill that kid. He's like, I already killed him.
Yeah.
Now, do you think the kid's actually dead, or?
I do. You know, it reminded me a little bit, and I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but the Watchmen line, right, where he says this is going to happen.
I was thinking the same thing.
It happened 38 minutes ago, or like I said, I don't remember the exact minute.
Yeah. He says, I'm not. Actually, they just did that in Avengers 2. They confront Ultron, and he's like, "Oh, let me just tell you my evil plan." And he says nothing and starts trying to kill the Avengers. Right. You know. Now we get this fight. Now this fight, which I like a lot, because I've always hated in like kung fu movies and now, yes, it's true that a guy like Stick would be he'd be one hell of a, like, he could probably kick my ass, a guy like Stick, and yours, or even, doesn't matter our age, but a guy who's trained like Matt, they always show, like, doesn't matter how good the other guy is, the old master always wins. And that's what I like, that Matt won this in the end. I always say, like, because it doesn't matter how good you are. If you're 70 and the guy's 30, he probably will win.
Totally agree with you. You know, this, one of the things, I'm a big fan of the late great Robert Parker's Spencer novels, and Spencer would often talk about that, you know, I'm bigger than you. So someone who's good at what they do, who's bigger than someone who's good at what they do, who's smaller, will usually win every time. You know, and so somebody younger who's good will beat someone who's good that's older. Just, and not all the time, but enough that, so I was glad for that change of pace to show that, you know, Matt has continued his training, he's obsessed, and he's, you know, he took care of business.
Although, that being said, I do like when you see those videos of punks picking on, like, old guys who turn out to be Vietnam War vets, and they go do that stupid Punch-Out game where they jump and the training kicks in, the old guy just kicks their punks.
Well, yeah, and that's what, you know, and someone good who's old will beat someone young who isn't good, you know, And so, yeah, someone trained is going to take care of business for someone who's not trained, despite the age and size difference. So, but in this,
and I love how Stick's impressed.
Yes, he was. Absolutely.
He's happy that Matt kicked his butt.
Yes, he was. He was very happy.
Now, I just had an interesting thought, something we never even considered for the kid. Now, we're talking about mutant, but what if they go another route with the kid? What if it's mystical?
Ooh.
Marvel has been very wary about including mystical, but there is a Doctor Strange movie coming out, and you can't avoid magic with that.
No, and the Inhumans subplot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is kind of touched on that a little bit. So yeah, this is they could do that. And any other show,
and Daredevil has some
yes.
connection. Not like obviously he's not but he's
yes.
with the ninja aspect. He has had people who are connected to magic.
Absolutely.
And the Hand's resurrection. Oh, I wonder if we'll see any evidence of the Hand resurrection stuff.
Maybe season 2.
I could see.
Yeah.
We'll get to that second. So Stick. He leaves. Who knows where he's going? And also, he left him that he's getting ready to leave and stuff. And so that's where it ends. But we also now and then the next scene. Although of course then Matt finds the little wrapper thing because Stick had it this whole time. It's like, oh.
Yeah. I guess that's a cliche. But it was a good cliche, and I liked it.
Oh, yeah, I got no problem
with
it.
I was happy with it.
Now, we also get the next scene with Foggy, when she brings Foggy into the little circle, and they're talking about whose side is the head guy on, whose side the man in the mask on.
Yeah. Yeah, very, very cool. And, I love their Board of Weird, right? All the stuff that they're doing. Very cool.
Yes. Now, like you said, you've read Daredevil comics more than me, and I probably know. Do you have any idea who this guy is that Stick is talking to?
No, I do not.
Or what they're talking about? The doors will open. That sounds very mystical.
And it does sound mystical, and I don't know. I think a good guess could be someone from the Doctor Strange universe.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Because I bet you once we find out who that is, we're going to be like, oh. Mm-hmm. I bet it's someone we both know who it is. I bet you anything.
Could be, yeah. But that was a great scene. Will he be ready when the door opens?
I have no idea.
That was really well done.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. And I love the going back to the wall of, mystery. The King of Diamonds and the Jack of Hearts with the Jack's face blacked out was a really cool, image of the show trying to see, So I was very happy with that.
So that pretty much wraps up the episode. What did you think?
So I really liked this a lot. Had big expectations because of Douglas Petrie writing it. And so I gave it 9.5 ice cream wrapper bracelets. Really, really, so far, if it's not the favorite episode of what I've seen so far, it is close to it.
This one had really good fight choreography, and obviously we get hints into what direction this is going to go, and I'm hopeful about it to see where they'll go and how they'll do it, because there's a lot of stuff in the Marvel Universe I really want to see in live action, and that's, in my opinion, is what the point of these shows should be, exploring stuff we don't have time to explore in the movies.
Yes, I agree.
So again, another good episode. I've yet to have a bad one. I don't think I'll ever have a bad one. But
absolutely.
Yeah. So we'll see where that goes. And everyone, stay tuned for the next episode, Shadows in the Glass.
Absolutely.
So why don't you take us out, Jesse?
Well, Zach, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, great way to get a hold of me would be Inch from Insanity on Twitter.
Okay. And I am at JWJ170104. We are love to hear your thoughts and what's going on. We will be back to talk about the next one. In the meantime, remember, we Murdochs get hit a lot, but we always get up. Bye.